This is the voice of the New York Football Giants, Bob Papa, and you are listening to the best throughout Europe, the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast, proudly in association with Andy's Man Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk. This episode, we are 100% British, but as always, 100% Giants. Dan and Kev unavailable for this one, but I have one half of the offensive guru room, one half of the defensive guru room here with me tonight, and we're not even going to speak offense or defense. We are going to cut this episode into a slightly different segment than we usually would do. It's still unfathomable to me how last night played out, and I can't get my head around it. Shane, how you doing?
That's a great start. I was on mute. Yeah, I'm all good. It comes to something when I'm wearing an Albion top today because the Albion is the only team of mine that didn't disappoint this weekend. It ain't often that happens. So, yeah, we'll get into it tonight. And like you said, it's okay to talk, and there's gonna be a lot of talking, and hopefully there'll be a lot of talking from the viewers with their comments as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This has a potential, I would say, to get a little X-rated. Sometimes it happens with me and Shane on, especially. We have a tendency. Dan's not here, so maybe that brings the count slightly down. But it's going to be one of those. Aaron, how are you? Out of interest, just as a question to Aaron and Shane, you can come into this as well. Did it take anyone else ages to get to sleep last night?
So I fell asleep and had this nightmare where we were leading by 19 points and we didn't win the game. And I don't know if anybody had that same nightmare, because I'm pretty sure that wasn't real.
Isn't that just Giants reality?
like that was a nightmare, wasn't it? Tell me that was what you didn't get that same experience. It was just something that happened to me, right? Because there was no way we were losing that game. We didn't concede a point for 5 quarters. 2 against the defending Super Bowl champions, 3 against a team that had just beaten the defending Super Bowl champions, and our offense was doing okay against these highly rated defenses. So there was no way it could have gone wrong.
And yes, it did.
I think the issue is the game ended, and I was just browsing social media because I was just like, what have I just watched? I don't even know. Even for Giants, even from the New York Giants, that's a new level. Like, it's like that meme. Our expectations was low, but holy hell! Like, it just seems like every single week, this team tries to do something to try and break you. Like, let's find a new way to lose this. Let's just something however many thousand teams have done before. Let's give up a lead of a certain score, which we'll come on to. Let's see if we can really, really question their fandom when they've stayed up till 10-1 in the morning in the United Kingdom, and maybe even later than that in other parts of Eastern Europe. And it was just one of things. I just lay reading social media for a bit, just thinking like, please tell me other people are thinking similar to me.
It was just a surreal feeling to just sit there. I mean, if anybody wants to laugh, just go back and look at our X feed from yesterday, and you can just slowly see the joy get sapped away to that last tweet that I sent last night of Michael Scott from The Office, just saying, "I am dead inside." And it's the only way that it kind of makes you feel sometimes is. And I know that we're all sports fans here, and you always take the highs and the lows of sports, and we've experienced highs, not with the Giants, but
I was going to say,
with me and Shane, we haven't experienced it with the Giants, but with our other teams, we've
I,
experienced highs.
I still like. Craig, have you not noticed what top I'm wearing? But like,
You've won a championship.
oh, yeah, but that's like certain clubs claiming we've won a League Cup. It's like, is it a big trophy? Not big enough as what you'd want. But I'm just gonna say though, like, was it just me? But when we got that touchdown, and it was the case of the Broncos need to go and get a field goal to be fair, Aaron, that weren't a dig at you. That was a dig at our little noisy neighbours in the blue half of the city. But yeah, look, when we got that touchdown to take the lead, and it was a case of, okay, Broncos, they've got to get a field goal to win this. Was there anyone else? It was just like, well, it's game over. They've done it. When you think about
our
history,
Giants.
yeah, with our history of game losing field goals, you just knew instantly. You were like, I know how this ends. I've seen this story. I've read this book too many times.
It was one of those where you knew that even if that field goal ended up being something absolutely ridiculous, like 70 yards, it would have broken a record. It was going in
all day.
Yeah. Just yeah. Unfathomable. Just genuinely still can't get my head around what happened last night. I'm pretty sure, obviously, when you're watching the game on DAZN and it comes up saying this broadcast has ended, I'm pretty sure I just sat there and stared at that for a good 5 minutes afterwards, just trying to collate what I'd just seen. But as you said, Shane, we've just come to expect it. We have not had, especially since the move to YouTube, we've just not had a lot of opportunities to be jovial and like have the opportunity to be happy and just throw a few. How often have we been able to throw a few subtle digs? I genuinely think I would have been insufferable on this podcast towards that Broncos defensive front if we would have won, and they've ripped it from me. They have ripped my heart out and not allowing me to do it. And New York teams at the moment are just not having a good time. And Shane, like, we're a few days away from the Knicks tipping off. Like, holy hell, we needed last year. I think we need this year to be even better.
With a new head coach as well.
Yeah, of course, Thibodeau's gone, hasn't he? So, right, before we actually begin, I guess, if you're watching this on YouTube, X, Facebook, please do get involved in the comments. This one might be a bit of a weird one because of the topics we're covering, and when we're covering them, there is a chance that I will probably just star your comment and bring it up when it's relevant. But obviously, feel free to put it in there. Put some questions in there as well. This one might run long. We don't know. Subscribe if you aren't already. Hit the notification bell. Thank you very much. All you audio listeners, you have a specific number to rate us, and that number is Aaron. 5 stars. Thank you very much. Also, just as a little G-up, and this is something that might change because the Giants decided to throw this one in the fucking trash. However, our Broncos preview episode is our most watched YouTube video of all time. It's even beaten out our draft coverage from this past off-season. So a massive thank you to anybody who watched that, who promoted it, who shared it. All those likes, all those thumbs up that you give these videos really do make a massive difference. It allows us to get into the algorithm, and it allows us to be put in front of people that maybe don't know who we are or aren't aware of us. We also broke 300 subscribers on here as well, which is another big milestone for a small pod talking about the Giants over in the UK. So a massive thank you to everyone. And we're just over 250 episodes, so it does mean a lot. However, let's get into it. So before this game, and we kind of covered it a little bit in the preview, the two sets of fan bases ignited into like a little chippy warfare that's normally reserved for divisional rivals. The sort of stuff that we would throw to the NFC East guys just as a little kind of ignite the fire. But for some reason, this game between the two of them, it turned nasty towards the end between the two fan bases. One of the defensive linemen decided that Dart was going to be his main target. Nick Benito decided to take a shot at our delusional fans, apparently. And after that, it was on like Donkey Kong. As Aaron has already mentioned, the game entered the fourth quarter and that chipping intensified from the Giants side because we were up 19-0. But what happened over the next 15 minutes of game action will haunt this fan base for the rest of this season, at least. That every lead that we have from now until the end of the season will look fragile. Every game will be tense until the end. And unless there are major coaching and personnel decisions being made that we will get into shortly, this is not going to be forgotten. And I don't think the media are going to let us forget this. We almost became the media darlings over the last few weeks. And I think a win over the Broncos really puts us centre stage. And because it ended the way it did, it still puts us centre stage, but in a bad way. Now, I know that there are some people who are defending us. There are some people who obviously are reveling in the fact that the Giants once again have made themselves an embarrassment during the late window this time. However, that's just it's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. The fourth quarter saw a total of 46 points scored between the two teams, and we saw everything from 2 touchdowns that wouldn't look out of place on a Nick Hancock's comedy video, an interception, a missed extra point or two, unflagged penalties, and a collapse of monumental proportions from the New York Giants. So, like I said, this is going to be a different kind of show. There's no offensive defense split, just 6 moments or talking points of unfiltered discussion between the three of us. Players of the game will be mentioned at the end, like I said, and that's because it wasn't all bad. The Giants just lost moments, and it's the moments that saw the Giants become the first team in 1,602 games to be leading by 18 points with 6 minutes left to play and lose the game. Shane, you are up first, my friend. What have you got to get off of the chest?
Yeah, so the first one of the 2 talking points I'm going to talk about is the kind of the incompetent coaching and a bit of the roster management. Now, some of these details I'm only going to talk about briefly because Craig and Mayo are going to go into in a lot more detail. But like regarding the coaching, whilst it's easy to say this is the defensive coordinator's fault and, playing the way that he did on Denver's final drive or in that last quarter even. But let's not forget, Shane Bowen is not our head coach. A head coach trumps a coordinator. Head coach is the be all and end all. So, if nobody can overrule Shane Bowen more than Brian Dable, if you didn't like what he was dialing up or the way the defence was lined up, as someone on Twitter said, and I think, Craig, you could probably confirm who it was because I think it was you that shared it with me. If Dave didn't like what he saw on that final drive, you had a timeout left. Use that and have a discussion with Bowen. He chose not to. That's on Brian Dable at the end of the day. I don't know how much detail we're going into in what the other guys want to talk about, but I know that like today, Dable's turned around and said, we're not making any changes in terms of coordinators. That's on Brian Dable. So at the end of the day, this coaching incompetence, okay, coordinators, offense, defensive, special teams, whatever, it does fall there. But at the end of the day, the book stops with Dable because Dable's the one that can overrule. Dable's the one that can make changes. In terms of roster management, the kicking situation is going to be my next point, which I'll talk about later, so I'm not going to get into that just yet. But the offense was basically Dart, Scatterbo, and Robinson, and it showed that that's all it was. In terms of the defense, I need someone to tell me why Banks was on at any point that field for anything other than special teams. He was on the field for a total of 38 snaps last night, and he showed nobody that he should be on the field for even half of those snaps. He was targeted 3 times. Anybody want to guess how many receptions he led up? I'll give you a clue. Yeah. He allowed all receptions he allowed his way, including 40. They went for a total of 40 yards and also the touchdown, which personally, I blame Banks for that touchdown because to me, and if I'm wrong here, anyone can disagree with me, fair enough. But when I watch that play back, the ball gets tipped. Banks as far as Banks is concerned, it's tipped. The ball's dead. I'm going to be fine. Unfortunately for him, the wide receiver he's covering stuck to the first rule of football: you don't give up on the play. And the wide receiver he was covering still chased that ball down in the hope of catching it after it was tipped. When Banks realised that, oh shit, he's still going for it, it's too late. He's lost half a yard. He was never getting to that. So for me, yeah, okay, it might have been a bit of a lucky touchdown in the sense of it was tipped. We had one on our next drive, so it evens itself out. But at the end of the day, Deontay Banks was on that field for some insane reason, and he was at fault for me on that because he didn't play till the ball was dead. Yeah, like Steve said, you taught to play to the whistle in football. In NFL, you play till the ball is dead. So for me, I don't understand, why. One, Brian Dable. I mean, look, Brian Dable kicked off kind of thing at Shane Bowen, apparently at full time, or through the headset dead and everything. Sorry, Brian, if you didn't like something, do something before it. Don't try and react to the cameras afterwards and throw things down on the floor, stomp your feet, shake your clipboard and all that bullshit. If you didn't like it at the time, you should have done something then. At the end of the day, you chose not to. That is on you as the head coach. Just like the decision not to make any coaching changes or coordinated changes is on you as the head coach. Just like it's on Brian Dable at the end of the day. And like I said, I'll come on to this in a little bit more in more detail. Brian Dable chooses which kicker to dress on a game day. Not Joe Shane, not Mike Kafka. It's Brian Dable as the head coach. Brian Dable as a head coach decided he was happy with the wide receivers that he's got going into this season. He could have done something. He's chose not to. So for me, coaching incompetence shows why Dable, for me, is 100% on the hot seat, and it's something we'll touch on maybe later on in this week and certainly as the season goes on. And then, like I say, number two, I just don't get why Deontay Banks, first round bust, is even on the field for a defensive play, let alone a special teams play.
It is starting to feel that way, isn't it? I mean, Paulson Adebo obviously went off with the injury. Deontay Banks is in, I guess, the coaching staff's eyes, next man up. But there are other cornerbacks that are going to be dressed on that day who will be playing special teams. Obviously, they might not have the reps that Deontay Banks has, but at the moment, you might as well just put them out there because they're not going to give you anything less than what Deontay Banks is giving you at this precise moment. Like, I'm pretty sure Nick Jones is on special teams. I'm pretty sure he's also more of a slot cornerback. But at the end of the day, we all thought Cordell Flott was a slot cornerback and solely that. And I know that that's another player we're going to touch on later. But we might have a bona fide number one cornerback in Cordell Flott, let alone a two there, which is what he's obviously being asked to do. Like, something needs to be done. Something needs to be done. Aaron, I might just hijack this very, very quickly before you go on to this Bowen ranks. I think it kind of comes into it, and I'll ask you the question, and then you can kind of amalgamate it if you need to into what you're going to go into. But Shane, you're completely and utterly right. Brian Dable now owns this Shane Bowen problem, and it is a problem. And when some of your players are starting to call it out, it becomes a problem. Brian Dable has obviously decided not to make any major coaching decisions. If anybody hasn't seen that, that came out within the last hour that during his Zoom call that he tends to have with the beat writers. He was asked if there would be any major coaching changes because of what's happened yesterday, and he said no. We all need to do better. That starts with me. But come on, Brian, you've been fucking saying that for years now. I'm sick and tired of it. Like, it starts with me. If it starts with you, finish somebody else. Like, if it starts with you, you're the man who has to make the big ball decisions. And if you're scared of making the fucking big ball decisions, just go. Like, at some point, Joe Shane needs to turn around and see that this is a bigger issue, because Joe Shane is the next man above Brian Dable. So he's just as entitled to try and do something. And as much as Jackson Dart is coming on into his own at the moment, I still don't think that that's enough to keep Brian Dable here if we're getting some of the bullshit stuff that we're getting on the field.
But the thing is, as well, you say that about Joe Shane, but what about our owner, who in January said, I'm fed up of watching teams move up and down the field on us? There obviously would have been a conversation that those two would have had, and Brian Dale, in some shape, form, or capacity, would have had to vouch for Shane Bowen and why he was keeping him. Well, how did you go into that after yesterday?
Yeah, it's baffling. Aaron, Shane Bowen, the floor is yours, and then I guess you can end it with whether you think keeping him around is the right decision.
Sure. So, well, let's go back in history a little bit and talk about the previous DC, and a lot of the problems we're seeing now didn't happen under the previous DC, and the reason why Wink's defensive system uh, uh, didn't have this kind of thing. It was a completely different system, and I know we've changed some of the players, and there's an argument about whether the players are the right players for each system. But you can put the best players in the world and put them in a shit system, and you'll get shit results. And that's literally what we're seeing with this defensive system. One, it doesn't utilize our front seven in a really effective way. We're too tied to this forefront rather than trying to go with kind of a 3-5 or something a bit more creative up front. It's too similar. It's too obvious. It's too thing. It gives a really good, simple read for the defense. And then any time that we're playing with a lead, we go into the prevent yourself from winning defense, and it just gives up chunks of yardage and quickly. And the fact is this defense went 5 quarters without conceding a point. Right, so there is something there, but when you then go, well, we're playing with a lead, and I know we haven't done a lot of playing with the lead over the last few seasons, so maybe the players don't quite understand the scheme in that scenario. The fact is, we go into this prevent from winning defense, and it's a product of Bowen's scheme. When we're rushing 3, and again, yeah, maybe that's the Dable could have called a timeout and cancelled it, but there's got to be a conversation that, especially on that final drive when it's only a field goal that you need to give up. Special teams has done a great job all day. We've had a ball, I think one of the drives they started at the 6 thanks to a kick and a run out of bounds by RJ Harvey. This one they started at the 25. The special teams have set them up. Special teams has given them a 30-yard cushion to play with, right? You're in a scenario where if you concede a touchdown, you lose the game. If you concede the field goal, you lose the game. So you can't play for, let's hold them to field goal distance. Don't let them into the end zone and we'll be okay. It completely changes the scenario. Where is our strength on this defense? We knew at the time that Banks was in because Adebo was out for the game. Belton, who had a phenomenal game. I don't think he's one of our players of the game, but he came in, filled in for Holland, and had an excellent performance when he came in. Why are we going to rely on coverage? The one thing that we pretty much know we can't do, and neuter our pass rush. You saw how many times did we see on 3rd down the Broncos put 8 or 9 guys on the line, send the house, which forced Dart to make a quick throw. Now, that quick throw means you'll get the receptions 3 or 4 yards down the field, no more, if they get off. If it's not batted down, how many times did we bat the ball down from Nick? 6, 7 times? By taking those guys away from the blitz, you take away that opportunity. And that's what we've seen. Now, we didn't only see that in this game. We saw it in the Cowboys game. We saw it in multiple games last season. It's absolute product of this scheme, and it's a god-awful scheme. Now, the only way you change... Generally, a leopard doesn't change its spots. So Bowen is the reason this scheme exists. It's Bowen's scheme. We know Dable's an offensive guy. Yeah, sure, Dable might be giving him some directions about what he's doing. It's still Bowen's scheme. It's Bowen's install in the week to say, right, if we're in this situation, this is what we're going to do. It was a complete disaster. I know we talk about complementary football, and there was a lot of mistakes in that final quarter from all parties. But fundamentally, we conceded 33 points, of which 7 came off a turnover. So take those 7 out, still 24 points, 25 points that we conceded in a quarter, having not conceded anything. And the only thing was different was we played differently. We played with a different scheme. This is where we have to go and say, right, this is enough. For me, I was done with Bowen last season. I don't want to see him anywhere near the thing. The problem is you bring in somebody in the middle of the season. How often are they going to do another scheme? How are they going to install it? Antonio Pierce, I'd love him to come and be our DC. That whole bringing a guy through. We saw the success of some former linebackers in the league as head coaches, as coordinators. That the Miko Ryans and Vrabel and that kind of same era. Antonio Pierce, with the guys the front 7 that we've got, I think it would really work. But doing that mid-season with such a late bye week, it's not like we've got a bye week where we can bring a guy in, transform a defense, get a plan, and come out with something. We're in a situation. There are things, like I say, this defense is doing okay. We went 5 quarters without conceding a point. There's something there. That's, for me, that's the players playing above the scheme, the talent that we have on that front 7 playing above the scheme. But I've had enough of watching us just fold when we've got a lead and just go, well, we're just going to give it. Same if we're down and we need to we're 1 score down and we need to get the ball back. We know we're going to give up 8-9 yards a rush, and it's funny how the more one-dimensional an offense gets, the worse we get at defending that offense. I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm not even angry necessarily about Bowen because I was angry last year. I'm just disappointed.
The thing is, and this is something obviously Holt's saying here, give it to Charlie Bullen, the outside linebackers coach for the rest of the year. The guy has some juice on the sideline. I don't think we fundamentally need to change the scheme, despite the fact that it fucking stinks. What we need to change is the play calling in the critical times, isn't it? And as you rightly said, we've gone from we're going to rush 4 essentially, because we never rush more than 4. It's very vanilla in that sense. Like you said, the Broncos. There's a play that I'm going to speak about in a minute. At the end of the second quarter, where they send the house and it does get to Dart and it forces him into an incompletion. We just don't seem to do that sort of thing. But the most baffling thing out of everything there is when you look at that last play that ended up getting them much, much closer which ended up with the field goal being essentially a chip shot field goal. It was not a difficult one to make. It's one that most NFL kickers would be able to make with no issues whatsoever. Why was Dexter Lawrence and Abdul Carter on the sideline? Why in a critical situation is our defensive coordinator taking out 2 of our best players? And Dex had a fucking good game against the Broncos, probably the best game he's had all season. But we're taking him and Carter off the field on a critical situation. You can't tell me that there's any logic behind that.
The only logic would be if we needed to give up a touchdown to lose the game and a field goal wasn't good enough for them. As soon as they need a field goal to win, not even tie, like you're at a stage where you're defending the 50. You're not defending the 30, the 40, the goal line. You're defending the 50. We had 25 yards to play with. If you're playing press man with a blitz, that's going to be tough for them to go and pick up those yards quickly. They had no timeouts, they had to play for the sideline, all this kind of stuff, right? Unless you give up a big gain on the very first play. Oh wait, that's what we do. And it's just you're playing coverage and the guy's wide open.
I think you've seen as well last night what Dexter Lawrence thought about not being on the field. He wasn't asked about it, but he was interviewed, and it took him a good 8 seconds. And I think it was a proper like, I need to bite my tongue and count to 5 before I answer this question, because if I engage my mouth before I engage my brain, I'm going to be getting fined tomorrow. Because, and this is the thing that gets me. How, as Brian Dable, do you turn around and say to Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns, who were both pissed off yesterday? There's a video of Brian Burns going in the tunnel and he's shouting, dropping 8 into coverage on the final play. How do you turn around and say to those two players, one of which has been your best defensive player this year so far in Brian Burns, the other one is one of the best defensive players in the league in Dexter Lawrence, that Dex, you're the best, one of the best defensive players in the league. I'm not putting you on the field to try and stop this drive. How are you explaining that to him? And how are you turning around and saying, as Brian Dable, we're not making any changes. We're going to keep him. Like, that is just insanity to me. And talking about insanity, why the fuck do we do what we do against Dallas 4 weeks ago or whatever it was, when we needed to stop them getting a field goal and we played fucking 18 coverage and we seen what happened? Does Shane Bowen go, that's the play again, it'll work this time? Why the fuck would it work this time?
Well, this is the thing. There was some comments about that. Oh, the Giants don't play off coverage that often, right? And look at the league average and this, that, and the other, and they play a lot of man coverage and this, that, and the other. It's not about the averages. It's about those individual plays. And we need one stop. At least the Cowboys, they needed a touchdown to level the game up, and they are defending the end zone and all this kind of stuff. Here, this was a completely different situation. They cannot cross the 50, right? If they cross the 50 in our history of game-winning field goals, we know we're in trouble, right? So the line that we need to defend is the 50, right? If you're in the red zone and you're trying to, if they, this is the other thing. If they go and blow the top off the defense and score a touchdown, we've still got 30 seconds to come back and score a touchdown ourselves, right? So the last thing you want to do is allow them to slow play it up to get to the 50 and then slow play it, because they know they can just kick a field goal. But they can still threaten the end zone, right? So you're better off sending the house, and if you give up a touchdown, you've got the ball back to try and score back again, which you've just done. So the logic of playing off coverage defensive thing, it just, I don't understand what I heard. There were lots of mistakes in that final 3 minutes. I'm sure you'll talk about them later, but that is just another compound error. It was like a series of unfortunate events where any one of those things goes slightly differently, and we're walking out with a W. We're doing a back-to-back victory pod. We're going into the Eagles with a chance to sweep the Eagles, get to 500, and everything else. Like an alternate reality of one of these small decisions. And the final nail in the coffin was the off coverage.
Yeah. And then, we talk about Brian Burns and just how much he put into that game yesterday, to the point where he obviously went off the field with that ankle injury, ended up coming back in barely two plays later. And then at the end, we give up that big gain, and then they get the extra 5 yards off the neutral zone infraction through Burns, because Burns is somehow trying to sprint back to the line of scrimmage when they've just picked up a 29-yard completion or whatever it was. It was just, I just felt for Burns yesterday. And that's another example of the mismanagement. Why is Dable not calling a timeout there? I know it stops the clock and it doesn't help. It doesn't help us.
We weren't going to do anything with that timeout.
But the penalty was going to cause the timeout anyway, because they would have had to take the penalty and then reset, and then the game continues there. Just take the timeout, because then he takes the timeout after the penalty. And what do they do during that timeout? There can't have been any conversations that were had because nothing changed. We still fucked up. Right, I'm going to move on because we haven't even gone through our first points here between the three of us. So we're even half an hour in. Jackson Dart. Let's touch on Jackson Dart for a bit. Up and down, I think, is the best way that we can describe it. Part of the blame for the fourth quarter will inevitably weigh on his shoulders, and it will do for this week. And you could tell it was by his press conference yesterday. Like he felt that. The one thing I did take from his press conference was the fact that he said, and he was adamant about this, I hate losing. I don't like losing. Like you could tell with him, where Daniel Jones looked dejected after a loss, Jackson Dart looks pissed off after a loss, and I think that that's one bit of his mentality that maybe we didn't get to see until yesterday. Just how those close losses that should never happen will affect him, and I think he'll come back better. I do think that way too many of us are quick to forget that when he makes a mistake, he is a rookie who will make mistakes this season. It's inevitable. It's just going to happen. So the joys of having a rookie quarterback is that you temper your expectations as to the product that's on the field. He is going to see stuff and think it's open and it's not, because he's still got his college head on, and it's going to take a couple of seasons of coaching to get that out of him. This is a player that has come in for 4 weeks as the Giants quarterback and made the Giants one of the must-see teams in the NFL at the moment, in a good way, but also in a bad way with what's happened last night. But when was the last time that you could say that the Giants were must-see for something more than just getting an ass whooping every single week? I mean, let's look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I'm going to flip the script so it's the ugly, the bad, and the good. Dart's interception at the Giants' 40-yard line by whatever his name is, Strand. I've never seen Strand spelt like that before in my life. It was a poor throw, and it's a rookie mistake. He thought he saw his man open. He didn't see him. He threw the ball. It's bad. The ugly part of this, and the reason that it's in the ugly part, is not the throw, it's not the decision, it's the timing of it. The Broncos were on the ascendancy. They had 10 points as the gap to close. It wasn't what it was before. They just scored 2 touchdowns and 2 two-point conversions. And rather than kind of stemming that offensive momentum and allowing our defense to rest in the altitude, I don't think a lot of people have spoken about the fact that the defense were gassed, not just because they were on the field a lot, but the altitude as well, because that's going to take effect the longer the game goes on. But we allowed them to get back on the field. That's why it appears in the ugly. For the bad, I'll be brutally honest. I feel like I'm nitpicking in the grand scheme of things when it comes to this game with Jackson Dart. But it needs to be addressed to make it balanced. Otherwise, we're just the ugly and the good, and it doesn't work. Dart has a tendency, I think, to play hero ball, which is something that a lot of the college quarterbacks that come into the NFL nowadays have within them, because quarterbacks in the college game, I think, are much more powerful entities than they've ever been. I think that they really do run the show when it comes to college football, and because of maybe the caliber of opposition that they're coming up against a lot of the time, they can do this hero ball and keep the ball and move around in the pocket and make these amazing plays and do it for the, for the virality of things, but it doesn't always work. One such play that a veteran would do differently is that one that I spoke about with that incompletion just before the end of the half. Now, in the grand scheme of things, we're 13-0 up. It doesn't really affect the game as a whole, but it's just something to make sure that when they're watching the tape, they turn around to Dart and they say, look at this one. There is, I think, 1 minute, 11 seconds left on the clock when they take the snap for this one. And he has a rusher literally in his face straight away. Game awareness would say, take the sack, let the 40 seconds run off the clock so we make sure that the Broncos don't have an opportunity to double dip. Because they did. They had the opportunity to go down, score a touchdown, and then come out of the half and do the same. It didn't happen. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. But at the end of the day, he needs to be a little bit smarter in those decisions. And again, it's a rookie thing. He'll get over that and he'll learn. There were a few off-target throws that could have iced the game and extended drives, and we could have taken more time off the clock, but I'm going to cover that a bit later. The good, and the reason that he's my player of the game, despite the fact of all the points before, against what many people call one of the top two defenses in the NFL and the sack leaders in the NFL, Jackson Dart had a career game of 283 yards. He had 8.6 yards an attempt, 4 total touchdowns. He had 3 passing, 1 rushing. Some of those touchdown passes were brilliant. The one to Bellinger, absolutely phenomenal. I think the Scatterboo sort of little dink pass is an easy one. The Theo Johnson touchdown pass is a circus play. I think that's exactly what we all called it last night. But he wasn't intimidated by that Denver pass rush. He got sacked 4 times. He was pressured a good few times as well. Our offensive line played really well, I thought, against Denver. But he made sure he was still poised, he was still mobile, and for the most part, he was accurate in the pocket and he moved around without looking skittish. He elevates his teammates. His confidence is infectious. He's accountable when making mistakes as well. In that press conference yesterday, he was asked about the interception and he said, look, my feet got stuck in the ground. And then he paused and he went, you know what? I have to be better than that. It's unacceptable. I have to be better. And I think what we're seeing is the maturity of Jackson Dart really sort of come to shine through. Shane, you've got your point 2. Just what do you make of, just very quickly between the two of you, what do you make of what happened with Dart yesterday?
I think for me, he had his best game as a New York Giant, without a doubt. However, I'm going to kind of be a little bit controversial maybe against the flow of things here. I don't think he played that well on that final drive to get the touchdown.
No.
I thought he made some erratic throws. It just felt like it was a throw it down and hope for the best. And let's face facts, the only reason we got to where we wanted to get to was because of a DPI and then a couple of extra yards because Payton lost his head. That's the only reason we got to where we did. So, I do think it was his best game, but I thought a lot of the throws he was going for on that final drive was just hero ball, basically, like college ball, college throws, like just throw it deep and hope that something happens. I think Mayo said on our chat last night, like he didn't need to constantly be trying to get the whole of the yards that he needed in one play. Like, it would have been fine. Get 5, get 6 yards rather than keep bombing it. Like, I don't know how many bombs he threw, but it just felt like nearly every ball was a bit of a bomb attempt. So, but again, that's something that's going to come with time, with experience. Yeah, he made some mistakes. Yes, he's a rookie, but also that doesn't mean he's not immune to these criticisms. We're still going to call it out. We're not saying that we hate him, he's shit, we hope he fails, we don't want him. But at the end of the day, just because he's a rookie doesn't mean that he gets to not get criticised. It's called controversial criticism or constructive criticism is probably a better way of putting it, sorry. So, yeah, he's a rookie. Yeah, he's going to make these mistakes. But we're still going to call it out because that's what we're going to do. At the end of the day, it's fair.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, right? So we went into this season thinking Dart should sit the whole season or sit a large majority of the season and this, that, and the other. He's completely proven that view wrong, right? All of the analysts that said he needs to sit a year, wrong, right? He's still not a finished product. He's a diamond in the rough or whatever the term is, right? He needs that was a rookie mistake. It was a bad one. He needs to learn from it. Like we don't want him to be a Brett Favre. We want him to be a Josh Allen or whatever. Like Brett Favre throughout his entire career was just a gunslinger. He was always going to risk it. He was always going to hit a downfield throw, and that element of risk that never went away from Brett Favre's game. Good enough to win when he had the right defense and this, that, and the other. But it's a thing. Same with the final drive, knowing just to, how often have we seen Rodgers dink and dunk over his career, his way down into a field goal or a touchdown or whatever he needs. But it's very rare. I know he's got a couple of famous Hail Marys, but very rare that he throws it on one shot. He'll pick a team off and get it into a better range. So there's some of that development to come. But I think the real important thing is, we're now in a position where we think we have a quarterback we can work with. He threw 3 touchdowns in this game. We're not really talking about it. Daniel Jones' last 3 touchdown game for the Giants, passing touchdown game, was in 2019, right? Yeah. So he's done it within his first 4 starts for the Giants, away in Denver against what is, supposed to be the top defense or a top 3 defense in the league, without 2 of his top receivers, which I'll talk about a little bit in a minute. But he's not the finished product, but he's shown enough to show he is exciting to watch. He's got lots of promise. We're not in the same thing. His first touchdown was 44 yards, which was, I think, a good omen for me. I'll say it now, so I don't think we're going to talk about it later, but this rookie class as a whole in the NFL is some of the most explosive rookie class that we've seen in the NFL across the patch. And Scatterboo leads all rookies in yards from scrimmage, all rookies in touchdowns, and this class has got more yards and touchdowns than like the last 4 rookie classes ever did. So this rookie class is really, really good. So to have 2 of the best players, Dart's now odds on for rookie of the year. I say Scatterboo's destroying all of the competition in rookie yardage and from scrimmage. He's got the most touchdowns. There's lots of hope around Dart, the offense, and everything else. I think the most important thing from this result is to learn the pain of that defeat, learn the lessons of what went wrong in that final quarter, and don't repeat them. And, rookie Eli had some bad mistakes, and then look at him down his career and some of his commentary now on the Manning cast. You see the way that both him and Peyton think about the game and think about play calls and clock management and timeouts and substitutions and all of these kind of things. That comes down the line as you become a veteran, as the game slows down and things. There was definitely an element of deer in the headlights in that kind of thing, but he did lead us on a game-winning drive in the 4th quarter, on a game that should have been comfortable. But he then got up out of his seat, put the team on his back, got us over the line somehow, and then was fouled by the defense.
Yep. Exactly that. We've seen progression, and that's all we're asking for, isn't it? Even with a performance like last night where it was a bit up and down, there's still a progression on how he started, and over the 4 starts we can start to see more and more. Shane, you're going to speak about something a little bit different now.
Yes, I mean, if you look at it so far, we spoke about offense, we spoke about defense. There's only one other group to talk about, special teams, in specifically kicker, Irish Jude McTominay. Now, I'm going to ask, before going to what I'm going to talk about, I just want a yes or no answer from both of you. Craig, you can go first, and then Mail. Is Jude McTominay on this 53-man if he is not exempt?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so, no.
So there in itself lies the first problem we've got. If he's not exempt due to the international scheme or protocol or whatever it's called, Thunderbirds, FIB and all that rubbish, then he probably doesn't make it onto our 53. And I think we'd all openly admit that. Now, I'm going to caveat this by saying this is not a Jude McTominay witch hunt. I'm not saying I hate him. I'm critiquing him for his performance that wasn't good enough. Doesn't mean I'm a hater. This is what I said. I said something similar to Craig and Dan earlier. You can criticise somebody without being a hater, and I'm sure all the listeners and the viewers are going to be exactly the same camp. So Jude McTominay, he through 4 weeks he went 7 out of 10 on extra points. He went 1 for 1 on field goals from 20 to 29 yards, and he went 1 out of 1 on field goals from 30 to 39 yards. Now, both those field goals came in the win against the Chargers. Both the kicks were from 21 and 31 yards. And they're important numbers to remember. So, prior to becoming a New York Giant, he spent 2 seasons at Rutgers. He successfully kicked field goals on just 63.2% of his attempts, whilst PATs were much higher at 95.8% success rate. However, most of these were actually in 2022. In 2023, he lost the starting job as a kicker at Rutgers, and only attempted 1 field goal or XP, and that was a field goal that he missed that was beyond the 50-yard marker. Incidentally, he's never hit a field goal either from over 50 yards. Now, in his college career in general, he went 9 for 16 on attempts over 30 yards. Now, PATs in the NFL are from the 33-yard line, approximately. So, obviously, kicking beyond 30 yards is a problem for Jude McTominay. Okay, so the big issue, and something I can't overlook, I think we'd all agree, I said he had a 95.8 success rate at Rutgers, which is pretty good for PAT, for extra points. The problem therein lies, the PAT at college is from the 20-yard line, not the 33-yard line like it is in the NFL. So for me, why is it that a guy has consistently struggled to kick from 30 yards or more at the collegiate level has been trusted with the job of kicking them at the NFL, where the stakes are a lot higher, along with the pressure and the limelight of being an NFL kicker? So what it basically means with all the numbers I've read out, when he's attempted anything from 30 plus, whether it be a field goal, whether it be an extra point, he's gone 21 from 30. Now, that is not enough for a starting kicker in the National Football League. Now, to be fair to McTominay, says this isn't a witch hunt about him. He openly turned around and said after the game, this is on me. I missed vital points at vital times today. I'm not going to shy away from that. The snap and the hold was good. It was my lack of execution on the kicks. I'm not going to shy away from mistakes and letting the team down. So, he knows himself, he needs to do better. But for me, it's a case of why, when kicking has been such a big issue for this team, with Joe Shane, with Brian Dable, like I mentioned earlier on, Brian Dable chooses which kicker to dress on a match day. We've got Young Wei-Koo on the roster. Now, if Jude McTominay won the kicking battle, that's fair enough. But what was the kicking battle they were having in training camp when Jude clearly has some sort of issues when kicking anything beyond 30 yards? And at the end of the day, if we make them extra points, we don't have to go for the 2 that we went for. I think, was it when we were 19 up, I believe it was. As well as that, the Broncos don't just need to drive to the 40 or 50-yard marker like Aaron alluded to earlier. They've got to go and get the touchdown. They've got to drive the length of the field. They can't just settle for getting midfield and be relying on the kick. So those extra points cost us the win. Now, I'm not saying it's solely Jude's fault. There's other things that we spoke about previously and that we'll probably speak about as well that are contributing factors, but this was a contributing factor. And for me, I know he's Irish and we're Big Blue UK and Ireland and we want nothing more than for Jude to succeed, but there is no way he can dress next Sunday for the Philadelphia game. You need to elevate Young Wei-Koo. If Young Wei-Koo's not good enough in practice, you need to go and get another. There's plenty of kickers that are free agents. But I just don't think Jude will be great in the pressure on the road at Philly. Philly's a horrible place to go. Don't do that to the kid. I'd rather you just kind of pull him back. He's still on the roster because he's exempt. Work on things, develop and grow that way.
I think that the thing that's missing from the conversation as well is field goal kicking has moved on this season, and it's a little bit by stealth. They changed the rule around the balls. So before you used to get your cables straight out of the packet and put on in the game, and you used to have to kick whatever ball was there. Then they used to give you the game balls an hour and a half before the game, and the best kit men were paid loads to break in these balls for the kickers as much as they could, because you had to break in a pool of balls as well, because you could be given any of the balls. So this season they can bring their own balls to the game, and as long as they're in the legal dimensions, and pumped up correctly, it's good to go. So breaking in a ball, if you talk, Pat McAfee talks about this, breaking in a ball is really, really important for a kicker. And what we've seen is the reason why we're seeing so many field goals now over 50 and approaching 60 is there's been a change in the use of the ball. So that veteran savvy around breaking in a ball, this, that, and the other. It's no good being a field goal kicker that can occasionally make a 51 and a 52-yard field goal. You need to be a field goal kicker that's got the range to hit a 62-yard field goal and regularly hits them over 50. And we don't have that with Jude. I hope the whole idea for him was to develop and get there, and maybe he'll still get the opportunity to path play program, get there and get onto a team and thinking. But yeah, that absolutely was one of these things that went wrong for us this week in this fourth quarter that effectively came back to bite us in the end of the game. And you say one of those, the last one was the most egregious one, because obviously that changed from being a field goal to tie to a field goal to lose. And ultimately led to us losing the game. The first one, we obviously then went to 2. We failed on the 2. Broncos went for 2. That kind of compounded that error and this, that, and the other. But that's kind of here or there. Like, you can't miss 3 out of 3 3 extra points out of, or was it 7, 10, whatever it was, Shane? Like, that's you've got to be 99% on 95% on your extra points. Otherwise, the team should just go for 2 every time, because most teams are around 48% on 2-point conversions. If you're only at 60% on extra points or 70% on extra points, you're going to be better off over the course of the games going for 2 every time.
Just on that point there, because this always seems to change, and for some reason I can never seem to retain the information. A field goal is 15 yards, yeah, on top of where your distance, where you are on the field.
7.
Huh? 7
to 8 behind the line of scrimmage is usually where you would hold the ball. 7 or 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage, plus your 10 yards for your end zone. So 17, 18 yards, really, yeah.
Okay, so 58 yards would have been a field goal on the first drive of the game.
Yeah.
Because we punted it when we were pretty much at midfield at that point. And that's the thing, isn't it? Like you're saying, like, I don't want to big up a rival player, but Brandon Aubrey might be the best kicker in the NFL right now. And he has done it consistently. Jake Elliott might have missed a field goal yesterday. He's been pretty damn consistent for the Eagles across the years. How many times has it come down to a field goal, as we've already said in this podcast? How many times have we fallen foul to these field goals? And yet we're trotting a kicker out there who we have no faith in to kick a field goal that long. You cannot tell me that they had any faith. It was also the 2-point conversion that the Giants went for when they were 19-0 up. And at first I thought, oh, they're going for the 2 points to make it, 21, to make it an even 3-score game. But it's way too early in the game for that to be the case. I genuinely think they had the yips at that point, and they just didn't want to get Jude out there. They just kind of wanted to go, okay, let's just settle him down a bit more and go again. It's not ideal. It's not ideal. Aaron, point 2 for you.
Yeah, so looking at the box score and the stats from the game, we had one really good receiving performance from someone that was started that's labelled on the roster as a right wide receiver. And then we had 0 receptions by any other wide receiver on the roster, despite a number of targets for, I think there was 1 for Hyatt, 1 for Bo Collins. Maybe there was 3 for little Jordan Humphrey. This performance, and put into context, this performance for Dart is against the best, one of the best corners in the league is on the roster in Denver. We are missing number 1 and one of the top wide receivers of the league in Malik Neighbors. we're missing our number 2 receiver in Darius Slayton, and we're putting up that kind of performance. The tight ends, and I'll talk up the tight ends, and Daniel Bellinger with his 44-yard touchdown, obviously had a decent game. Theo had a decent game, although there's still some concentration issues or drops or whatever. I think Bellinger, we talked before the season, was he a cut candidate? I'm glad he's on the roster. He's played really well. Manhurts obviously didn't appear in the statistics as a receiver, but had a good game blocking and even for the run. Scatterboo, I think, had 3 catches and a touchdown, his first receiving touchdown. The challenges that we're having around these kind of things, and I kind of said last week when there was all this trade talk, I want to see 2 wins before we go and give away a draft pick for a wide receiver. But actually, I've kind of changed my mind on that, and I think for Dart's development, it's really important to get a guy in. Waddle, if that deal is available, I'd be going for that because of the length of the contract. I know it gets expensive in the last 2 years, but from what's the wide receiver market going to be in 2 years' time anyway, maybe 30 million is the new 20 million, and it's actually a pretty reasonable number 2 contract at that stage. And we get someone that's under contract for multiple years. We get that benefit of helping Dart develop this season, but then we don't need to go and take a risk on a high draft pick on another wide receiver and risk a Jalen Hyatt type pick again, who again has completely not worked as a wide receiver. He just had that one target on the deep pass downfield, and we didn't get, and which we didn't connect on. But if it's a second and a fifth, or a second and Hyatt going the other way, a second and Evan Neal, I'm kind of up for Waddle at this point. I think that would be a good addition, and gives us flexibility around whether he's slot or an outside guy. He's a guy that's done both. Obviously, we know Wandale is in his last year of his deal. There's this I've been on the guy side where I'd like to upgrade at slot, because as much as Wandale has good games, in the past, it was all what I would call scam yardage, and it was all yardage behind the line of scrimmage, and it was screens and this, that, and the other. And it's really hard to value that as a slot, despite the number of targets and receptions that he's had. At the moment, he's vital to Dart because he was targeted 12 times for the 6 receptions that he had. But there's still an issue, a real issue at wide receiver, and I don't want it to affect Dart's development, and that's really where I'm at moving forward. Any thoughts on that trade market, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, I did the Waddle one instantly. I think I said it, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, the Waddle one. Waddle appeals to me. I was so high on Waddle coming out of Alabama a few years ago, and obviously he ended up getting that kind of draft talk that meant that he went in as early as what he did. I'd rather try and push the boat to try and get, say, a Waddle or an Olave. No issues giving up that second rounder. Like, it doesn't bother me. You're not going to get a wide receiver of the caliber of Olave or Waddle in the second round, which is like how I like to look at them. I think Waddle's got okay cap hits for the next couple of years at least as well, and then the cap hit is going to go up over the years beyond that. So there's no reasons not to do it. The issue might be Miami not wanting to do it. I can understand why not. But at worst case scenario, maybe you can try and take for a Jacoby Myers for, like, say, a 5th round pick or something like that.
Indeed. Right, let's try and close this out now. So very last quick point from me is just the coaching staff and the history of mismanagement of the clock. And we've kind of touched on this a little bit, I guess, but in the first 3 quarters, the Giants led the time of possession battle 23 minutes 28 to 18 minutes 51. So we were quite comfortable there. And even in the first part of the fourth, it wasn't too bad. But when the Broncos got within 3 points, it was 3 minutes 51 remaining. The Giants went 3 and out, burning just 1 minute and 9 seconds off the clock because we decided to go rush. rush again, and then the Broncos took a timeout. And then we decided to go pass. And I don't have an issue with going rush, pass. It's fine. It's not exciting. It's not inventive, but it can work. The issue that I have is that the pass that we decided to do was a deep shot to Wandale Robinson, where actually Jackson Dart just about overthrew Wandale. And if he connects on that, Wandale probably goes in for a touchdown on that. And we're not talking about any of this, really. What I would have preferred is just a numbers completion. Just get a completion in the middle of the field, close to the sticks. If you get the sticks, happy days. If you don't get the sticks, you still take another 40 seconds off the clock. That 40 seconds off the clock ends up negating the 30 seconds at the end of the game, no matter what happens there. So it's just the clock mismanagement. And then that last drive where we ended up scoring. Shane, I think you alluded to it earlier. Hero ball. What's the play calling that we're going when we're going, you know what? Just hit a go route. Just hit a go route. And we'll launch it up to you. And we'll hope. We'll just hope. Bo Collins was targeted in the end zone. I think Lil John Humphrey was targeted towards the end zone. Obviously, we got the pass interference call that wasn't pass interference. I think we can all hold our hands up and say that we got away with that one. You start off the drive with a couple of runs. You end up getting, because of a delay of game, which again comes down to coaching management. You get the delay of game. You end up 4th and 19. We get the completion to Wandale Robinson, or fourth. It was 4th and long, and I think we got the 19-yard completion to Wandale Robinson. It extends the drive, but I just don't get it. And then you get down to the goal line, and Aaron, I think we were talking about this, and we were quite vocal about this last night while we were watching. I know we need to score, and that's the most important thing. So, okay, not a problem if anyone wants to call me out on this one. No issue. But you get the ball down to the 2-yard line, 1-yard line. Dart has the run, stretches out the arm. We then have 30 seconds to go there. You've got 30 seconds on a timeout. Do we not just try and run it up the gut? And if we get stopped, okay, that's fine. We burn a little bit more time off the clock. Like, I would much rather have lost that way than lose the way that we actually ended up losing last night with that field goal, because we all knew that was inevitable. The way that we had that defense up to a point, sort of in our own hands and within our own destiny, I just cannot understand why Dart. I mean, obviously we don't know what the play call is there, but why Dart? Obviously, when he's going for it, that's going to be his mentality as a rookie. But you would have thought that the coaching staff would have been like, maybe let's just try and run a little bit of time off the clock here. We're likely to punch it in anyway, so just try and shorten that down. But then again, this coaching staff. We just never know really what's going to happen.
I said it. The whole point of the deep shot on the drive, you don't want to score too quickly on that last drive and leave too much on the clock. And again, this is a veteran quarterback move and something that you hear. But actually, obviously the original touchdown from Dart on the sneak, it was called short. That was the best possible thing for us because Denver couldn't stop the clock. We've got the ball at the 1-inch line. Right, we have one timeout. We've got 40-odd seconds on the clock. We've got enough time to what should have been said at that situation is we're going to sneak to not score on the first down, and then we're going to line up the second time and score. And you get set a second time. You snap the ball with about 20 seconds to go, right? Just for emergencies. If you don't score, you take your timeout, right? You can then throw it on third, and then you can go for it on fourth, run or pass, right? You've got the whole thing open to you. But if you score on the first one, you obviously give all of that time over, right? The Broncos had no way of stopping the clock. We literally should have squeezed that down like a lemon thingy. I'm going to give you guys a history lesson. I'll take you back to 2011. 2012, February 5th, 2012. You know what all happens in February? It's the Super Bowl. And there's 1 minute and 7 seconds on the clock left. And we've got the ball on the Patriots 8-yard line. And Eli Manning has a thought. He doesn't vocalize it. He hands the ball off to 44, Ahmad Bradshaw, who, as the defense opens up to allow the Giants to score, Eli shouts, "Don't score." Too late. Bradshaw falls into the end zone, trying not to score. One of the greatest moments as a running back, to score the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl, and you're there trying not to score, to fall on the 1-yard line to run the clock out. So a veteran QB there, although it didn't actually happen, he then went on thinking, what happened after that point was the Patriots needed a touchdown, had to go downfield. Did we play prevent defense? Do you think Steve Spagnuolo, potential head coach in waiting, is going to call a prevent defense in that situation? Or is he going to put the NASCAR package on the field and take out Brady, right? So there's a kind of a symmetry to that kind of game that again, veteran savvy, whether that's because as a team we've got quite a young squad, we've not been in that winning position. A couple of years ago in the 22 season, we saw Barkley slide and not score to let the clock run down and that kind of thing, having had a problem a week or two before where he did score and created time in the game for the other team to come back and that kind of thing. So I think there's just a little lack of veteran leadership on the offense. They say, look, guys, take that breath, calm down. When it's the coach in the ear or the guys in the field, look, we're gonna run 2 plays here. The first play is going to be a sneak, and we're not going to score. I'm going to fall down and make sure I'm short, and then we're going to line up and we're going to run it again. If that fails, we're calling a timeout, and we've got 2 plays then to score. You clearly didn't have that in the game, and we scored as quickly as possible, even that too much time. Even the Theo Johnson touchdown, right? That on the immaculate reception, kind of
throwback.
Yeah, the part of the problem with that drive is we scored too quickly. Had he fallen, he nearly got tackled at the 1 or whatever inside the red zone, and I know our red zone issues, right? But if he gets tackled inside 10, and we have to then run another 3 plays to score, that's even more time off the clock, and there's less time for the 2 touchdowns to come back. All of these kind of things, like obviously the quick score, that was like a 4-play drive. The defense were gassed in the altitude. The last thing that the defense really wanted was a 3 and out. The next best worst thing to a 3 and out is 7 points on 4 plays and back on the field, and actually another 3 plays there would have made a massive difference. And that's kind of some of that veteran savvy leadership. I think the really good thing is this happened in what is likely a nothing season in October, not in December. You know, I don't want to remind the last time the Giants gave up 19 points, but we're going back to the punt, the new miracle in the new Meadowlands, and the Deshaun Jackson kick return for the Eagles to score 28 points and to lose, so for the Giants to lose and miss out on the playoffs and all that kind of thing. That was the last time that we did a 19-point plus lead blow up. Incidentally, I think we've done it 3 times in the last 20 years, and the rest of the league has done it 3 times in the last 20 years as well. So it's not a great history of blowing leads, but at least it wasn't 28-3.
The one thing I will say is, talking about what you're saying there, I do wonder how much Dable and Kafka potentially got scared and thought, we know what our red zone's been like, we just need to score.
And on the flip side of that, there is obviously always the risk of a false start or a delay of game or something that pushes us back that then causes more issues for the offense, and potentially we end up going for it on fourth down and not getting it in a turnover on down. So I get that it's a little bit of a hearsay, hindsight's a wonderful thing, all of that, but what happened. We can't change that. We can only talk about the things that could have happened. Very quickly, we'll fire through the players of the game before we decide to move on, because like we said, we did have them. Dan went for Brian Burns. Burns had 3 total pressures, 2 sacks, 1 hurry. He had a batted pass. He had 3 tackles, 4 defensive stops. He dropped into coverage a few times, as he has done a few times this season, and always looked good. I think he's probably one of our best tacklers in the team at the moment, and I think you could probably argue that he was the best player on the field last night, and I'm not just talking about the Giants. Shane, who turned his camera off.
Oops. Joy's been on an iPad. So my defensive player of the game, not for the first time this season, I went for Cordell Flott. He posted the highest cornerback PFF grade in week 7 with an 89.7 grade. He was targeted 10 times and allowed only 2 catches for a total of 19 yards, 2 pass breakups and 0 touchdowns allowed. He also had 4 tackles with 0 missed. And I'll be up for debate with anybody who wants it, but I would argue he is the best cornerback on this roster right now.
Totally agree. Kev went for Daniel Bellinger, who it's an absolute travesty we haven't spoken about Daniel Bellinger and the resurgence of Bellinger over the course of this season. There's just been so much to cover tonight. Bellinger, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 88 yards, 1 touchdown. I think that's a career high for him, 88 yards as well for D-Bell. Really come back into it this season. Obviously has a bit of a rapport with Dart, is obviously taking full advantage of the fact that we're playing 2 tight end sets, and is getting open. If there's one thing that we've said in the past, is that Daniel Bellinger knows how to catch balls. Like he can, on his day when his concentration is at its highest, he is a man who will just be a reception machine, and we saw it in that 2022 season. We're starting to see it again this year, and we're here for it. Mine was Jackson Dart. I'm not going to go into him any longer. Aaron, do you want to just close it out? Your player of the game.
Yeah, so player of the game, Wan'Dale Robinson, obviously led us in receiving. I think the really important thing about Wan'Dale Robinson, and obviously I mentioned about re-signing him and this, that, and the other, he's really improved his ADOT, not just since the other receivers have gone down, but his average depth of target. He's taken that downfield pass against the Cowboys. He's moved on down the field in this game. He's adding that to his thing. He is a limited wide receiver. He's got a small catch radius. You've got to have a very accurate throw to him to come our way with the completion. But he's been really impressive over the last few weeks. Beyond that thing, for a guy that's in the contract year, really impressive. And just quickly on Daniel Bellinger, really impressive as well. Although when you're that open, he had enough time to make a cup of tea before walking in the end zone. What a botch by that defense! But you could only catch the ones that are thrown to you. That one was a nice moment for him. I would love for him to come up with a difficult catch on the other end zone. You could have had 2 touchdowns in the game as well. But it's a really good performance from Wan'Dale, and we need him to continue.
I'm going to give a few honourable mentions as well, and these are honourable mentions for players who deserved to be in the conversation. It's not like, oh, they did well, but no. These are players that arguably could have even done better than the players that we've said. One, James has already said one. Andrew Thomas literally made the league sack leader change side because he was being bullied, and then Holty followed it up with him and Illuminal were brilliant last night. They both did not allow a single pressure to those edge rushers, which is a phenomenal effort between the two of them. Dane Belton, we've already given him a shout out, Shane. I think you did earlier. Dane Belton came in for Holland, did absolutely brilliant. You cannot fault that. Probably the first time that Cam Scatterby hasn't appeared as a player of the game either. Another player who had a good game. And Darius Musau, I feel like needs a little shout. I thought he was very good when he came into the game. It's also nice to see some of the old Bobby O coming back in. So there are positive performances out there. It just doesn't feel like it right now sometimes. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for tonight. We will be back on Thursday for a much shorter episode, I promise you, when we preview the game against the Eagles. And don't forget that as part of that preview, you do have the meet-up this coming Sunday, 4 p.m. till late at Belushi's London Bridge. Do make sure that you join us there. Beers will be flowing, no doubt, and hopefully, if we could do the double over the Eagles, I mean, I don't even want to get ahead of myself. I've had my heart broken too many times here. Anything to add before we go?
No, I'm just gutted that we couldn't get into the O-line in a little bit more detail. That's always a bit of a shame, but unfortunately that'll have to remain till next time. But like this defeat's done, it's gone. In all honesty, I'm not angry, I'm not annoyed. I've kind of become subdued to these kind of defeats because I'm just at the point now in my Giants career where the Giants fandom career, I should say, where I expect to be let down on a regular basis.
Aaron?
Yeah, O-line. I love to watch the All 11. That's not out yet, so maybe we'll cover that down the week. But I think there was 3 pressures, one hit, one sack. Obviously Schlottmann in as a backup centre, no snap issues, no. So yeah, another honourable mention for me for Schlottmann. The only thing I haven't mentioned is what the hell was the ref thinking about not throwing that holding call flag on Flott on the Knicks touchdown. I know there's a lot of upset Broncos fans about holding, but the thing about holding, there's holding on every play in football ever, right? The key important thing is it's not a hold at the point of attack or a real critical hold. The ones that are really egregious are the really critical holds. This is the only guy that could stop Knicks going in the end zone, and it was egregious hold. CBS showed the replay about 4 or 5 times. And it was clear and obvious that it should have been called. And different game if that one doesn't go in, because again, more clock time comes off the clock. Obviously, I'm still mad about it because I'm bringing it up and we're 20 minutes over the time limit on the podcast. And I'm keeping these guys from getting on with the rest of their evening. But has to be said for me. Looking forward to the meetup and whether that's win or lose, just enjoying the hangout and seeing as many faces as I possibly can. And first time the 5 of us will be together in person, which will be a bit of a landmark.
Absolutely. And if anyone is in the local area for the meetup, hasn't decided whether they want to come or not, there's nothing stopping you. We are exactly the same as we are on the podcast. There is nothing different about us. We have fantastic partners in Keith and Andy with the New York Giants Fans UK group, who have always been very welcoming. We're slowly starting to get more and more people come to these meetups. I know for a fact we have people traveling from up north. We have people flying from Ireland. We have people flying down from Scotland. Like, we have hardcore fans. We really do appreciate it. But there are plenty of people who will be there. And the conversation that we'll have will be amazing, and the beer will be flowing, and we can just enjoy it. So anybody who's still on the fence, bit of trepidation, come down, introduce yourself to us. There's always a spot. We're always open to talk. If anybody wants to bring questions, we'll answer questions while we're watching the game. It'll be good crack. It always is.
And remember, it's 1 hour earlier because of the clocks go back. So plenty of time to get home afterwards if you're not staying down as well, because it's the game will finish just after 8. So so make sure you don't miss the kickoff.
Yeah, exactly. As always, remember to like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can hit the bell to be notified of when we do go live, just in case it changes. If you aren't already, follow us on all the socials at the bottom of this episode in the description. Do rate us on your podcast platform of choice. 5 stars, as Aaron will always say. It's a shame those isn't 6 stars, so you can point at the dark jersey behind you. My thanks, as ever, go to Shane and to Aaron for joining me tonight. All of you watching, thank you so much for getting involved in the comments, and we will see you on Thursday. Let's go Giants.